They slowed down just enough to roll the window down. "You're 18 now," Dad said. "You figure it out." Then the car turned left and the rain got louder. The certificate in my backpack was soaked through by the time I made it to the bus stop. I'd won first place in the regional academic decathlon, something no one in my school had done in 8 years. The judges called it impressive. My parents called it a waste of time. I stood on the sidewalk, rain coming down hard enough to sting. I waved when I saw their car coming, stupid reflex, I guess. The kind you don't unlearn even after months of silence at the dinner table. They didn't stop, just slowed, windows sliding down like they were offering me a ride. That's when Dad leaned out. "You're 18 now, you figure it out." Then the window rolled back up, and they turned the corner without a brake light. I stood there, in a soaked school uniform, watching their taillights disappear behind the fog. My fingers curled around the strap of my backpack. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just turned and started walking. 6 miles to the house, 38 degrees, rain like nails. I walked with my head down, shoes squelching, the paper in my bag melting into pulp. It didn't feel like anger. Not yet. More like a weight in my chest, cold and low, like I'd swallowed something metal and sharp. When I got home, the porch light was off. It always was. But this time the key was gone from under the mat. At first I thought maybe it shifted. Maybe the wind moved it. It hadn't. I knocked once, waited. Through the curtain, I saw my sister peek out. She was holding a bowl of cereal, spoon in hand, blue nail polish chipped at the edges. Our eyes met for half a second. Then she turned and disappeared into the hallway. I knocked again, louder. Nothing. I sat on the steps until I stopped shivering. Then I stood up and walked 2 blocks to the gas station, bought a day-old sandwich, and stood under the flickering overhang while I ate. I tossed the paper bag in the trash and sat on the curb. I pulled my soaked certificate from my backpack and stared at the ink bleeding down Then I folded it twice and shoved it deep into the bottom. Around midnight, I found a bus stop with plastic benches and curled into the corner. I didn't sleep. I counted the cracks in the plexiglass and watched headlights smear across the wet concrete. The next morning, I walked back to the house. Not because I thought they'd changed their mind, just because I didn't have anywhere else to go. The door was unlocked now. Inside, the place was empty. My bed was gone. My books, clothes, shelves cleared out, like I'd never existed. The only thing left in my room was a trash bag with a pair of worn sneakers, a toothbrush, and 3 shirts I hadn't worn. On the kitchen counter was a post-it, yellow, crooked, written in my mother's handwriting. "You wanted freedom, now you've got it." I didn't take the bag, I took the sneakers. I left the door unlocked when I walked out. There was no fight, no screaming, no final dramatic confrontation, just silent. For 2 weeks I lived in the back of a closed-down hardware store. The night manager at the 24-hour diner across the street let me mop floors for leftover fries and a few bucks. Her name was Colleen. She never asked questions, just nodded toward the mop and slid a plate across the counter. Sometimes I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't. On my 19th birthday, I bought a sandwich from a vending machine and ate it sitting on a curb outside a self-storage facility. It had mustard. I hate mustard, but I ate it anyway. That night, I burned what was left of the certificate. I tore it into strips and lit them one by one with a Bic lighter I'd borrowed from a line. The paper curled, blackened, and floated into nothing. Number 1 called, number 1 texted, number 1 asked, and I never looked back. I spent the next 3 years not existing, not officially, not legally, not in anyone's eyes. I scrubbed dishes at a bar that never checked ID, slept in a storeroom until the owner found out and told me to get my shit and go. I went without arguing, always did. My name was still on file at the high school, but no one came looking when I stopped showing up. No welfare checks, no truancy calls, just a silent deletion. Like a corrupt file someone clicked "yes" on when the system asked, "Are you sure you want to permanently remove?" The city felt too clean during the day, so I lived in the margins, night shifts, side alleys, back entrances. Colleen, the night diner manager, let me sweep the kitchen in exchange for leftover hash browns and a refillable coffee mug. I never asked for more. Sometimes she'd leave a jacket hanging on the back of a chair and pretend it wasn't for me. I always returned it the next morning, dry and folded. I got a room in a boarding house with coin-op showers and locks you could open with a pencil. 2 beds, 1 bulb, 1 mirror. My roommate was a forklift operator who didn't speak to me. Just came home, smoked in the window, and left again. I liked him. He never asked anything. I tried to apply for college once. Walked into a community college 2 towns over, still in my dish room uniform, holding a flyer that said, "Start your future today." They asked for my FAFSA. I gave them my name. They said my parents had already filed, listed me as a dependent, denied me access. I walked out and threw the flyer in a trash can, then pulled it out 5 minutes later, folded it and kept it in my wallet. Not for hope, just as a reminder. By the time I turned 20, I'd memorized every 24-hour building in a 15-mile radius. Which ones had heat, which had outlets you could sit near without getting noticed. Which ones sold the cheapest bread. That year, I discovered the downtown library had unlimited computer access if you waited long enough. That's where I taught myself everything. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, basic accounting, public speaking, business law. Not because I thought I'd use it, because it was free and I was tired of being stupid. I read a book called Letters to My Younger Self cover to cover 17 times. Page 84 said, "Don't try to heal through recognition. You'll only bleed slower." I underlined that line in pencil. Then I tore it out and kept it in my back pocket. It rotted by year 2, but I kept carrying it anyway. The day my old high school held its reunion, I stood outside the fence and watched the gym lights glow through the windows, heard the laughter, saw silhouettes dancing. I didn't go in, didn't want to. I just watched until it started to rain again. Then I walked away. I took night shifts at a freight warehouse, loaded pallets, swept concrete. One of the drivers offered me cash to help move a few extra crates off the books, said I had the kind of look that made people underestimate me. I told him I wasn't interested. He said, "You'll regret not taking shortcuts in this world." I said I already took 1.18 years long. He didn't talk to me after that. I didn't date, didn't party, didn't exist. I wrote down every dollar I made in a spiral notebook I stole from a grocery store. Saved everything. Didn't spend unless I had to. Didn't talk unless required. Didn't breathe unless no one was looking. I kept one photo in my wallet. Not of my parents. Not of me. It was a photo of that gas station sandwich from my 19th birthday. I'd taken it with an old flip phone I'd found in the trash. Something about it felt honest. That sandwich was more real than anything they ever gave me. The only thing I celebrated was the day I stopped thinking about them for more than 24 hours. It took 3 years, 2 weeks, and 6 days. I didn't mark it on a calendar, just looked at the clock, realized it had been a full day without anger, and poured myself a cup of instant coffee. Didn't even smile, just nodded, and drank it black. I worked at a tech repair kiosk in a mall, fixed cracked iPhones for mothers who told their kids, "Say thank you to the nice man." They never looked me in the eye. Didn't bother me. They didn't know what I was building. At night, I coded on borrowed Wi-Fi, rebuilt old Linux machines I salvaged from dumpsters, learned what a server was, taught myself how to build one. It wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering. Remembering what it felt like to walk in the rain and have no one slow down. Remembering what silence sounded like when it wasn't peaceful. Remembering how not to feel anything. My bank account had $11.13 when I opened my first digital wallet. By the end of that year, it had 6 figures. No luck, no lottery, just work, no celebration, just movement. No one called, no one messaged. The last voicemail I had from my parents was 4 years old. It said, "Don't embarrass yourself by coming back." I never deleted it. I wanted to remember their voices, just long enough to forget them. The first time I earned more in a week than my father made in a month, I didn't celebrate. I just bought a new pair of boots, the same model he used to wear to work, wore them twice. Then gave them away to a man I passed every day on my way to the train station. He said thanks. I said nothing. I got my first freelance gig from a Craigslist ad titled, "Need help with a broken site, can't pay much." The client paid me $40. I fixed his entire back end and rebuilt his contact form. Took 6 hours. He offered to shout me out on Twitter as bonus. I said no thanks. Took my $40 and used it to buy hosting for my own domain. Started building. I launched my first app at 21. A no-frills task tracker with an ugly interface and an obsessive attention to back-end efficiency. I named it figureitout.io. No caps, no colors, no smile. Didn't market it. Just let it sit. Within 3 months, it had 10,000 users. By the end of the year, 75,000. I added a paid version, $3 per month. They paid it. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. I just added the number to my ledger and kept moving. A VC firm reached out. They thought the name had edge. Said they liked the grind set branding. Asked where I went to school. I told them I didn't. They laughed. Thought it was a bit. Asked again. I didn't answer. They still wrote a check. At 24, I incorporated under the holding name FTY Enterprises, short for Figure That Yourself. No one noticed. I ran the company from a 1-bedroom loft above a closed printing press. The windows were sealed shut. The floors groaned like dying bones. I kept it. The silence reminded me of the bus stop. I hired my first employee, a girl named Karina. She was 19, good with numbers, and didn't ask dumb questions. I told her I didn't do birthdays, parties, or group photos. She said, "Neither do I." We never spoke outside of work. She never asked why. I respected her for that. I bought a car at 25. Not new, not fast. A 2004 Volvo with one cracked mirror and leather seats that reeked of someone else's cologne. Drove it only at night. Listened to voicemail recordings from my early years. Not because I missed them, because I didn't want to. I received a letter from the high school principal. He'd retired, but had seen an article about my app in a tech magazine. He wrote, "You always had potential. We're proud of what you've done." I framed it, then hung it above my toilet. My net worth crossed 7 figures on a Wednesday. The same day my old roommate texted me, "Need help moving some crates." I sent him $500 through an anonymous Venmo account. Didn't sign my name. He never thanked me. I didn't want him to. At 26, I bought the building where Colleen's Diner used to be. She'd passed away the year before. Cancer. No funeral notice, no headlines. Just gone. I turned the lot into a 24-hour shelter for abandoned teens. Quietly. No press, no plaque. Just a steel sign with 3 words. Figure it out. A journalist tried to interview me once. She asked why I built my company in silence. I said, "Some people build to prove something. Others build to survive. The difference is, one stop when it's done." She didn't understand. That's fine. Not everyone's supposed to. I didn't date, didn't go to therapy, didn't talk about the rain or the sandwich or the letter on the counter. But I did start dreaming again. Not the kind with hope or clarity, just images. The window rolling down, the sound of the engine fading, the flash of a windshield wiper slicing rain. I'd wake up sweating, not because I missed them, because I hadn't forgotten. Karina told me one day, "You should take a vacation. You've earned it." I told her, "Earning something doesn't mean I want it." She nodded, didn't bring it up again. That same week I got an alert from a real estate feed I hadn't checked in years. Foreclosure notice. The address was familiar. It was the house. Their house. Still under their name. Still sitting there. Cracks in the siding. Overgrown lawn. Tax lien of $78,442. My first thought wasn't joy or anger or even satisfaction. Just silence. The kind that comes right before thunder. I closed the tab. Didn't click buy now. Didn't call the bank. Didn't send a letter. I didn't want the house. I just wanted them to know someone had looked. That was enough. The email came on a Tuesday. Subject line, "Just a conversation?" The question mark was what caught me. Not the name, not the date, not even the fact that it went to my personal inbox. The one only 3 people in the world had. It was the question mark. They hadn't asked when they left me in the rain. They hadn't asked when they filed taxes listing me as a dependent while cutting me off. They hadn't asked when I called social services and was told, "You're technically an adult now. There's nothing we can do." But now they were asking. Now it was just a conversation? I didn't open it at first, just stared at it, unread, for 3 days. Let it sit like a spider in the corner of the room, watching, waiting. I went to work. I coded. I attended a board meeting. I approved a site redesign. And every time I checked my inbox, it was still there. Like a dog outside a door it once slammed shut. On the 4th day, I clicked it. The email opened with an old photo. Me, age 7, gap-toothed, wearing a yellow raincoat. It was taken before I learned to stop smiling. "We've been thinking about you," it began. "We're so proud of everything you've accomplished. We've seen your name online and it fills our hearts." Fills our hearts. That phrase stuck. I wondered which part. The part that walked past me in the rain, or the part that locked the door while I stood on the porch soaked to the bone, was now swelling with pride. They mentioned how hard life had been lately, health issues, the economy, the cost of keeping the house. They didn't say foreclosure. They said complicated finances. "We don't want anything from you, just maybe a chance to reconnect. We think about you often. We just want to talk." And then the line that made me stare at the screen for 15 straight minutes. "Please, just a conversation." There was no apology, no acknowledgement, no mention of the rain, the sandwich, the post-it note, the missing bed, the locked door. Just pride and regret and please. Attached was a screenshot of a GoFundMe campaign. $11,845 raised. Goal, $80,000. The campaign title was, "Help us save our family home." I clicked the comments. "You raised such a wonderful son. He must be so proud of you both. We're here for you. Keep fighting. Where's your boy now? Hope he sees this." There were 89 shares, no tags, but one post stood out. My mother had uploaded a photo of me at my high school graduation, the one they didn't attend, captioned, "Our boy, so proud." They cropped out the folding chair I was sitting on. They cropped out the fact that no one else was in the photo, because no one had come. I closed the email, then opened it again, then closed it, then sat there in silence. I didn't feel rage, didn't feel sorrow, just the deep, heavy stillness of confirmation. They were still who they were. But now I wasn't. I pulled up the foreclosure notice. Same as before. Nothing had changed. Delinquent taxes. 5 missed payments. Final warning. I called no one. Did nothing. Just highlighted the phrase, public auction pending, and bookmarked the page. The next morning, I received another email. This time, from a different sender. Subject, urgent, legal help? It was from my sister. I hadn't heard from her in 9 years, not since she watched me from behind the window. She wrote, "They need someone to co-sign. I told them you were doing well. They want to talk to you. I think they're sorry. Please just hear them out." She attached a scanned document with my name on the line labeled, "Responsible Party." I hadn't written it, but my name was there, typed in. I printed the document, pinned it to the corkboard in my office. Didn't tell my staff what it was. Didn't explain why I stared at it during meetings. Didn't explain why I didn't remove it even after 2 weeks. I got one more message, a voicemail, from my mother. Her voice was slower now, older, tired, but not broken. "You probably hate us. I wouldn't blame you. But we're family. That has to count for something." Then a pause. "If you don't want to talk, I get it. Just know we tried." I saved the message. Didn't respond, didn't delete it. Just let it sit there like a scar, healed, but never gone. I walked past a bus stop the next morning. Same cracked bench, same flickering light, same empty corner. It wasn't raining, but I remembered the sound. I didn't respond. Not the first day, not the second, not even after the third message came through. That one was shorter. Subject, please. No greeting, no signature, just that. One word. A whisper disguised as text. I didn't block them. That would have been too clean. Instead, I let every message pile up like snow on a windshield. Cold, weightless, slowly blinding. I read each one once, never twice. Didn't archive, didn't delete, just left them open, bare, exposed, and ignored. On the 5th day, I drafted a reply. 3 lines. "I'm glad you're proud. I remember the day you drove past me in the rain. You looked right at me." I stared at the blinking cursor, then hit backspace until the page was blank. That night, I visited the old neighborhood, drove in silence. No music, just tires on asphalt and the occasional streetlight flickering overhead. The house looked smaller, the yard overgrown, the shutters hanging crooked, one window broken, a tarp taped over the frame. I parked across the street and watched for an hour. No lights came on. No one came out. At one point, a porch light on the neighbor's house blinked on. A man stepped out in a robe, looked at me, didn't say anything. I nodded. He nodded back. I left. The next morning, I walked into my office and removed the document from the corkboard, folded it once, put it in a drawer, not because I was done thinking about it, because I didn't want anyone else asking what it meant. Karina stopped me on my way out. She never stopped me. "Are you okay?" she asked. I looked at her. "Define okay." She smiled barely. "Still breathing," she said. "Barely," I replied. She didn't ask anything else. That's why I kept her around. I spent the weekend in silence. Didn't answer emails, didn't attend calls, just walked the city. Ate cold noodles in a paper box on a rooftop parking lot. Watched pigeons fight over a fry. Counted taxis. Read a dog-eared book of poetry I'd found in a free library box. Things we leave unsaid. Page 19 read, "Silence isn't forgiveness. It's the wound choosing not to bleed in public." I folded that page. Put the book back where I found it. Left without a word. Sunday night, I opened the audio message from my mother again. I counted the pause between her words. The breath before, "We're family." It was 1.7 seconds. Long enough to mean she considered saying something else. Long enough to mean she didn't. I thought about the rain. The wet socks, the certificate turned to pulp, the locked door, the trash bag with my name sharpied on the side like I was someone's charity. I thought about the sandwich, the vending machine, the window at the diner. I thought about the phone I found in a dumpster, the wallet I bought for $2 at a flea market, and the gas station bathroom where I first cried and told myself, never again. I thought about everything. And still, I didn't respond. On Monday, the bank emailed me a reminder. Final foreclosure proceedings initiated. I didn't reply to that either. That night, I sat down and drafted one more message, 3 words. Keep walking. No greeting, no explanation. I stared at it for an hour. Then I deleted it. The power wasn't in what I could say. It was in what I didn't. On Wednesday, I received a final email. Subject line, "Goodbye." It read, "We understand. We're sorry. If you ever want to talk, you know where to find us." They signed it. Love, Mom and Dad. I did not cry. I did not rage. I did not forgive. I just stared at the screen and thought, too late. Then I marked it as unread, let it disappear into the rest. That weekend, I stood outside the conference hall where I was scheduled to speak. Tech leaders, investors, press. They had printed my name on a banner, keynote, founder of FigureItOut.io. As I adjusted my collar, I noticed two familiar silhouettes near the back of the room. Gray hair, cheap suits, clasped hands. I watched them from behind the curtain. They didn't know I'd seen them, but I had. The speech went fine. I spoke about systems, automation, self-discipline. No one asked about my childhood. They wouldn't have liked the answer. When it was over, I walked down the stairs and headed for the exit. They were still standing there, awkward, hopeful. They opened their mouths. I didn't. I kept walking. 3 weeks passed. The foreclosure went through. I watched the auction listing appear online like a gravestone without flowers. No photo of the inside. No minimum bid listed. Just one sentence. Bank owned. Sold as is. No disclosures. It didn't need one. I knew what was inside. I knew who was inside. The morning of the auction, I opened my laptop and stared at the bid form. I didn't fill it in. I already owned enough. Instead, I forwarded the listing to someone else. A former client. Newly married, first kid on the way, looking for property, small budget, big heart. They toured the house that afternoon, asked if I thought it was worth it. I said, "It's not perfect, but it's a good place to start over." They bought it the next day, cash. 3 days later, I got another email. It wasn't from my parents. It was from the new buyer. Subject, strange mail. He'd found a stack of envelopes addressed to me, hidden under a loose floorboard in what used to be my room. Letters, dozens of them, years old, all sealed, none sent. He offered to forward them. I told him to burn them. He asked if I was sure. I said, "They're already ash." 2 weeks passed. I thought maybe that was the end. But pain doesn't know how to exit quietly. A letter arrived at my office, handwritten, no return address. The receptionist placed it on my desk without a word. I opened it, slowly. Inside was a single sheet. Not an apology, not an explanation, just this. "We should have stopped the car." I folded it once, then again, until it was a square the size of a coin, slipped it in my pocket, carried it for a day, then left it on a bench at the train station. Someone else would find it. Let them wonder. I was in New York for a conference when I got the call. Karina said 2 people had shown up at the office without appointments, said they were looking for me, said they wouldn't leave. I told her, "Have security walk them out." No names, no explanations. She asked, "Should I call the police if they come back?" I said no. Let them stand in the lobby. Let them feel what it's like to be invisible. That night I went to dinner alone. White tablecloth, window seat, piano playing something in a minor. Midway through the meal, I took out my phone and opened my old inbox. Found the message, the one with the subject line. Just a conversation? Still unread. I clicked it once, marked it as read, then archived it. I never replied. 6 months later, I gave a keynote at a private summit in DC, small crowd, mostly investors, some government partners. Afterward, I took questions. Someone asked about the name. Why figure it out? I smiled once. Small, said, because no one else will. They clapped, like they understood. They didn't. After the event, I got in my car and drove back to the airport. Took a different route. Not the highway, the back roads, the ones with no lights, no signs, just 2-lane blacktop and the sound of tires whispering against cracked pavement. It started to rain. Not heavy, just enough to hear. I pulled over, got out, stood in it for a minute, felt the cold soak through the sleeves of my jacket, closed my eyes, and remembered the sound of a window rolling down. That night, I received one final message. No subject, no body, just a photo. The old house, boarded windows, graffiti on the siding, and spray painted across the garage door in red block letters. He never came back. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. The next morning, Karina knocked once and stepped into my office. Said someone was downstairs again, asked if I wanted her to speak with them. I said no. I stood up, put on my coat, walked to the elevator, and wrote it down. They were sitting on the bench in the lobby. Same clothes, same posture. A little thinner, a little older, eyes hopeful, hands folded. They stood when they saw me. My mother said, "You look good." My father didn't speak. I didn't say anything. Not at first. Just stood there. Let them try to read my face. Let them wonder what I'd say. Then I nodded once. Software final. And turned around. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I heard my mother whisper, "We just wanted to talk." I never said a word. That was the conversation. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.